2020 was an absolutely devastating year for restaurants. So much hardship and layoffs and closures and it was really painful to watch our industry go through what happened. But luckily, we were part of the solution here as we have products and services to help restaurants reach customers outside of their four walls, which became increasingly important as the dining rooms were shutting down for most of 2020.
Hey guys, I am super intrigued with the idea of virtual restaurants and ghost kitchens. You have a bricks and mortar restaurant. So here's the concept. You have an existing restaurant that puts out a certain menu, a certain concept or type of cuisine. Well, you can expand your reach, expand your brand with multiple different brand names for the very same food concept that you're already serving. Okay, it doesn't require extra labor. It's literally what you have in your existing kitchen, your existing staff preparing that type of cuisine. And it's all marketed online through third-party delivery platforms. Really interesting stuff. In this week's episode, I'm speaking with Mr. Alex Canter. Alex is the heir to the Canter's Deli legacy, a famous restaurant. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Stay tuned and listen up.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Rockstars, let me tell you about 7 Shifts. 7 Shifts is a modern labor management platform designed for restaurateurs by restaurateurs. Effective labor management is more important than ever to maximize profit and success, especially now as restaurants begin to reopen and expand their teams. Trusted by over 500,000 restaurant professionals, 7 Shifts gives you the tools you need to simplify scheduling, easily manage time and attendance, communicate with your team, and retain your talent. Best of all, 7 Shifts integrates with the POS and payroll systems you already use and trust, turning your team into a competitive advantage to your business. Right now, Restaurant Rockstars listeners can get 3 months absolutely free. Get started now at 7shifts.com/restaurant rockstars. That's the number 7, SHIFTS.com/restaurant rockstars to get 3 months of industry leading labor management for free. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast, engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, deliver amazing guest service experiences. And the first and the last are the biggest in this episode. Build their brands, rock their profits. It's going to be an amazing conversation. I'm with Mr. Alex Canter, and he is with the famous, he's going to tell us about his backstory, but everyone's heard of Canter's Deli in Los Angeles. I mean, long history of restaurants and in his family there, but he is the founder of a company called NextBite, and we're going to talk all about virtual restaurants and ghost kitchens, because that's what NextBite is all about. Welcome back to the show, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I can't recall exactly when it is, and we'll probably post your first episode in our show notes. We always do that, relevant episodes that the guests like to go back to. But we featured Alex probably over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, with his company called Ordermark, and now we're talking all about NextBite. So, Alex, why don't you tell us your backstory in the hospitality business? Take us to the very beginning. I know you started at a very early age just based on your family's restaurant.
Yeah, happy to back all the way up here. So I grew up as the 4th generation of my family's restaurant business in Los Angeles called Canter's Deli. It's one of the oldest and largest restaurants in all of LA, and is one of those places that's just kind of stuck in time. The decor and the whole feeling when you walk in, it's like you're walking into a time machine. And I just like my dad and my grandfather, I started at a very young age waiting tables at 12 years old and worked my way up through all the different positions, and eventually became in charge of all things new and was responsible for adapting the business for the next generation. And part of that meant embracing technology and experimenting with new ways to reach customers outside of our 4 walls. I was very passionate about helping bring our restaurant into the next generation, offering gluten-free bagels and vegetarian matzo ball soup and really updating the menu for the next generation. And then also on the tech side, I brought in the first point of sale system and renovated the bar, and just would take on all these little projects that it was kind of like a playground for experimentation for me. And every year I'd run around to restaurant conferences, signing up for different technologies, trying to see what works, what doesn't work. And through a lot of experimentation, our restaurant found lots of success with third-party online ordering, specifically through platforms like Grubhub and Uber Eats and DoorDash. And I grew sales, off-premise sales, to become over 30% of our revenue for our business, which was equivalent to millions of dollars a year, just on these apps, and created a whole new problem, which was 9 tablets, 2 laptops, and a fax machine to manage all the incoming orders. And wanted to solve that with some other co-founders back in 2017. Started Ordermark, which is a restaurant technology company that helps thousands of restaurants manage their entire delivery business. And then that actually evolved, and we launched a new service offering called NextBite in 2019. That has been a really, really impactful way for us to help restaurants reach new customers and drive meaningful revenue into their underutilized kitchens. And we can get into all of that in a bit, but that's my backstory.
Yeah, that is quite a backstory. I mean, you've sort of transformed and revolutionized a family business. It's been around for generations. I'm sure they're super proud of all your achievements there, but you didn't just stop there. I mean, you could have become the CEO of Canter's and everything else you were doing, but you just kept going, and the tech became such a huge piece, and you're really innovated. You looked at all the new technologies out there, and now you've created one of your own, which is super, impressive. Do you have a tech background? I mean, are you a sort of self-learned programmer, coder kind of guy, or do you just come up with ideas and work with the right people to make these things happen?
I'm not. My background is not in software or engineering, and no, I'm not a coder. But I definitely have a passion for helping restaurants. And back when we were founding Ordermark, we started with 4 original co-founders. None of us were actually software engineers, but we all brought different needs to the table to really get this thing off the ground. And we ended up bringing on 3 engineers really early on to help build the first version of the product. But we knew immediately what we wanted to build for restaurants. We knew the problem that we were solving. We felt the problem that we were solving, which was really helpful. And then we had a test environment to actually build this product from scratch, designing it to what we knew, how we wanted it to work. Building it in a high stress environment was definitely a helpful way to understand all the nuances that we wanted to build into the dashboard, and not just aggregating all the incoming orders, but having one dashboard to make menu changes and pause service across all the different online ordering services. So we really spec'd out and scoped out exactly what we wanted to build, and then we brought on some engineers to bring it to life, at least in the first version of that.
Fantastic. And it's been going for a couple of years. Did the pandemic increase your business? Did it give you new opportunities? Whereas, the rest of the industry, or much of the restaurant industry, really, really struggled through this, but certain pockets of the business really thrived. Those that had online ordering immediately had a pivot that they were using before. They could sort of shut down their dining rooms and just kind of go. It seems like the timing for you was kind of the perfect storm, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had a lot of data and this understanding that the shift to digital ordering was happening very fast over the next 10 years. The way that customers interact with restaurants has fundamentally changed, and the pandemic certainly accelerated that. 2020 was an absolutely devastating year for restaurants. So much hardship and layoffs and closures and
right.
It was really painful to watch our industry go through what happened. But luckily, we were part of the solution here as we have products and services to help restaurants reach customers outside of their 4 walls, which became increasingly important as the dining rooms were shutting down for most of 2020. So we did have a big growth year for our company in the sense that many restaurants were scrambling to implement an omni-channel off-premise strategy, which meant reaching as many customers on all the different platforms, and then also trying to leverage virtual restaurants to try to create more output of their fixed cost businesses. So we saw basically a lot of restaurants getting really creative, trying to transition their menus and change their menus to work in an off-premise environment, which, to your point, was a lot easier for some restaurants, really hard for others. If you think about fine dining and certain categories that were really not optimized or set up for an off-premise experience, it was even more challenging for groups like that to make that pivot and that transition to make their menu work offline or online. And we definitely had to really, our team really stepped up to help more restaurants than we ever thought that we could, going into what happened last year. And luckily, at least with restaurants reopening now, there's the hybrid of, dine-in is making a comeback, but off-premise is still a really large category of revenue for restaurants, and much higher than where it was pre-pandemic.
I don't see that going away at all. I see that having legs long into the future. I mean, people have gotten used to this new way of dining. It's all about convenience. It's all about getting what they want when they want. Yeah, people are still going to go out to full serve restaurants for special occasions and just because they feel like having an experience, but the convenience factor definitely will continue. So I don't argue that point. Alex, do you have a mix of both full serve and quick serve restaurants that have been utilizing NextBite?
Yeah, so we work with restaurants of all different shapes and sizes and all different geographies. We have everything from franchisees of Subway to local mom and pop restaurants that are serving authentic Asian cuisine, and really everything in between. We really, when we started, we were specialized for the mom and pop world. My heart is with mom and pop restaurants. That's where I'm very passionate about helping restaurants. And when we started building products and services to help restaurants, we really thought that's the SMB space was where we were going to play. And it still is predominantly where most of our customers are today, but we are starting to see restaurant upstream, mid-market chains, restaurant groups that have multiple brands under their umbrella are starting to implement our technology and layering on our virtual restaurants through NextBite, because they see the same opportunity to do more out of their existing operation. If you think about a restaurant as a manufacturing facility, or you think about the kitchen as a manufacturing facility, most restaurants have a lot of downtime, unless you're in and out, where you've got a line from the moment you open to the moment you close. The other 90+% of restaurants that are not in that situation have times throughout the day or throughout the week where they can really handle more orders out of their operation. And so NextBite, we designed that in 2019 as a way to essentially empower restaurants to take orders for a second brand or a fifth brand out of their existing operation, just by training these restaurants to say, carry these specific ingredients, make the food this way, and you can turn on, Grilled Cheese Society or Miss Maisie's Amazing Chicken out of your existing operation, using the same staff that's already cooking the food in your kitchen, using the same rent that's already fixed. And so we really saw an opportunity to look at these fixed cost businesses and say, how can we drive even more online orders out of these kitchens, not just by plugging them into all the different delivery channels, but turning on multiple brands on each of those delivery channels as well. So that, we saw everyone from fine dining steakhouses to Baja Fresh turning on these virtual brands last year.
It's really still an emerging opportunity. Like you said, you've been running this since 2019, but the concept of virtual restaurants is still, I wouldn't say lost on a lot of operators, but they just haven't really explored or really understood what this opportunity is all about. You summarized it really well, saying, okay, we got fixed brick and mortar businesses out there that are busy certain times and they're slower other times. And here's a way to augment, increase sales during those slower times by adding brands. So depending on what your concept is, if you're a chicken place, if you're a steakhouse, whatever it is, suddenly you come up with multiple brands that speak to that cuisine that are now spread across the digital world through multiple delivery platforms. And now, bang, you've got all this business coming in on a Monday when it was probably your slowest day or whatever. Alex, does a restaurant have the privilege to decide when to turn this on and when to turn this off? Like if they're slamming busy on a Saturday night and they just can't handle anymore, can they just pick and choose when this thing goes live and virtual?
Absolutely. And that's actually a very important, necessary piece of the infrastructure of how we've designed this entire business operation. But basically, we have this foundation that we built with Ordermark, which is the technology that we provide to our restaurants to manage their delivery business. Mm-hmm. And if we went into restaurants and tried to turn on extra brands or extra menus, without giving them the flexibility that's built into our technology of, walking over to a single dashboard, clicking a button and pausing service or 86ing something off the menu, it would probably fail. It's really not mm-hmm. how restaurants are, restaurants really need that flexibility in order to manage this in a successful way. And the reality of our industry is that, large party can walk in and you go from being pretty dead to all of a sudden very busy in a matter of seconds. So you need to be able to walk over to that Ordermark dashboard, turn off, whatever orders you want to pause service on, or turn off maybe one of the online ordering platforms and keep the others going. And we need to ensure that there's that good flexibility for these restaurants in order for them to be successful with this.
All right, awesome. Let's go back to the simplicity and the technology piece. You mentioned earlier, the 9 tablets and the fax machine and all this kind of stuff, and that's all past now. Now we're talking about somehow integrating with your Ordermark platform. What exactly is needed for hardware? And an existing POS system in a restaurant works with Ordermark, or tell us how that all works, please.
Yeah, so every restaurant is really set up differently. Some restaurants have multiple kitchens where they're firing off different items to different places. Some of them have kitchen display screens. Some of them are very old school pencil and paper still, with the old school cash register. So when we built Ordermark, we really wanted to build with flexibility in mind, knowing that there's no standard way in which a restaurant operates. If you think about a poke shop, there's like one line that you walk down and you just like pick all the ingredients, versus, fine dining restaurant might have multiple stations where they're firing different food out of. So we really, we started with the idea of building a single tablet and printer that aggregates all the incoming orders from Grubhub, DoorDash, Postmates, whatever your local delivery services, all into one centralized place. And it prints out standardized tickets of each order, so that the kitchen staff and the people making the food could really put their heads down and focus on what they do best, which is cranking out food, and not think about all the processes that happened prior to us coming in, where you had to manually confirm the order on the physical screen, write down the order information, or get it into your POS and send it to the back. And that was creating real operational challenges where, many times the orders were getting messed up, food was being left out, the wrong bag was going to the wrong driver. There was just lots of operational challenges that causes the restaurant to have to give refunds on these orders, which, now they're out the food and the money, which is really putting the restaurant back. And we wanted to simplify this process and really make it as easy as it can be for the restaurants to just be able to crank out as much volume as they can. And then we had many restaurants who were asking for integrations with different technologies that they were using in the back of house, from POS to KDS. And not most of the point of sale companies were actually not designed for online ordering injection. It's like fitting a square into a circle. Because there are orders that can get modified after their place, orders that get canceled after their place. And there wasn't a lot of flexibility built into the way that POS systems work. But over the last couple of years, we've partnered with several point of sale companies to really teach them how do you build your infrastructure to allow for that kind of flexibility, where we can send Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats orders into their system in a way that is flexible. And we haven't integrated with a lot of point of sale companies yet until they have the right infrastructure in place. But for now, our most popular method in which we partner with restaurants is we ship to them a single tablet and printer that they use to fulfill and manage their entire delivery business.
Do you care to share which point of sales you're currently integrated with?
Yeah, there's a list on our website if you go to ordermark.com, but we work with everyone from Brink to Touch Bistro to Toast to a number of the more modern cloud-based point of sale systems.
Gotcha. You mentioned some really interesting but critical point. What happens? Well, no, let me back up a second. Let's talk about the concept of a ghost kitchen. Okay, a ghost kitchen is putting out food. It goes out into the marketplace. The end user eats the food, but they don't really know where it's coming from. So let's just say, the element of human error is always present, of course, and the unexpected always happens, of course, and things get messed up. And you mentioned it yourself. How does the end customer contact the restaurant when something's, or who do they contact when something goes wrong? If it's coming out of my bricks and mortar place has 15 different brands and we're selling pizza and we're selling chicken and nobody knows where it's coming from, how does the problem get solved? Who gets restitution and how does that work itself out?
Yeah, such a great question. Let me first break down, what is a ghost kitchen? Let's talk about that first. And then
please do. Yep, please do.
This is as you've mentioned, is a new emerging type of restaurant. It's essentially a restaurant that only exists online. It doesn't have a physical storefront. It doesn't have a front of house. It is a restaurant that is specifically designed and optimized for an off-premise experience. And the food itself can be prepared out of any kitchen, from an existing restaurant to a specific commissary kitchen or delivery-only facility that is specifically designed to house these delivery-only restaurants. Some examples of traditional ghost kitchen businesses are like Cloud Kitchens or Kitchen United or Reef, which basically these companies are building kitchens that are specifically designed to house delivery-only brands and delivery-only restaurants with no, pickup experience or no dining experience. But we decided to approach this market a little bit differently. So what we do with NextBite, we don't actually call it a ghost kitchen. We call what we're building virtual restaurants, because these are restaurants that only exist online, but they're not being fulfilled necessarily out of a ghost kitchen facility. They're being fulfilled out of any underutilized kitchen, typically in the back of a restaurant that already has operating hours, that already has fixed costs. And we think that
that's right.
The way that we've approached this market, what we're able to do is layer incremental orders on top of a fixed cost business. So NextBite is a portfolio of turnkey delivery-only restaurant brands that we've created from scratch. We've got 15 brands that we've now brought to market. Some of these brands are now spread across hundreds of locations across the US. And what we're doing is partnering with local restaurants to teach them how to do more out of their existing output. And when we approach these restaurants, we ask, one of the first qualifying questions we ask is, can you handle an extra 10, 20, 30 online orders a day out of your existing operation? And if the answer is yes, we've got lots of concepts that we can start to walk through and see if they have the right equipment and they're in the right location to get the ingredients that they need to carry. And we're able to partner with them and train them and turn them on to multiple virtual restaurant brands that we've created. And each one of those orders that are coming into their business are generating this incremental revenue that they were not getting before. And we're paying our restaurants 55% of the gross sales of these incremental orders. And the hard cost to these restaurants is roughly 25% all-inclusive food and packaging costs. And if they don't have to hire any extra staff to handle these extra orders every day, that means that these restaurants are making up to a 30% profit margin on each extra order that we're bringing into their restaurant. Whether we're bringing in only a couple orders a day or 100 orders a day, every single order that we're bringing in has a 30% profit margin, which is unheard of in our industry. Most restaurants are operating at, if you're lucky, 5 or 10% margins.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And Canter's Deli is trying to operate at 3% margins, and sometimes we really fail to hit that. To come into an industry that has these razor thin margins and introduce this way of bringing in extra orders that have really high margins that are actually hitting the bottom line, it feels like we're creating a more sustainable and profitable operating model for restaurants who are working with us. And part of that means that, we're handling all of the logistics involved, from marketing these brands to making sure that they're positioned correctly on the different third-party marketplaces, and handling, any issues that come up from the customers who are placing orders on Uber Eats, on DoorDash. And so we handle pretty much everything besides making the food is done by our team at NextBite. We've got nearly 300 employees now within our company. And, lots of those teams are focused on operations and support to ensure that we can make it so easy for these restaurants that all they have to do is make food. And that is, something that we've signed up for, that is taking a big burden off of the restaurant's plate. If somebody orders from our celebrity brand Hotbox by Wiz on Uber Eats, and they place an order and they need to contact the restaurant, or something's wrong with the delivery, or the driver can't find where they're going, they're calling us, not the restaurant. And so we're coordinating and handling all of that stuff in the back end. And I think that's why restaurants really enjoy working with us, because we've really thought through all the different complications that can happen and go wrong in the delivery experience. And we've set up our business for scale to enable restaurants to really focus on the production of food.
That sounds really dialed, Alex. I got every word you said. And one thing really stuck out to me. Let's talk about consistency and ingredients. You mentioned the restaurant has to sort of perform best practices using certain ingredients to maintain consistency. If somebody goes into Wing Dynasty in LA and then they are in Louisiana, say, and they try it again, it should taste the same, look the same. Am I correct in saying that it should all be uniform somehow, regardless of where you get it?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Okay. All right, awesome.
And that's a really, one of the hardest things about what we're doing is ensuring that experience is going to be the same, whether you're ordering in Virginia or Miami. Awesome. And the way that we do that is by investing a lot into our quality control and QA experience. It starts with the concept development process itself. So, when you look at the menus that we're creating, first of all, we look at like food truck style menus where we pick a specific genre of food, and typically we'll have a whole brand design around wings or around grilled cheese sandwiches. Because if we're trying to do too much, it's going to be disruptive when we try to bring it to restaurants. If we go into a restaurant and tell them, here's a new 100-item menu that you have to take on, it will collapse. We're trying to bring things we're trying to design for and optimize for bringing these brands into a restaurant in a non-disruptive way. And part of that is also looking at, what ingredients are available and distributed across the country already. We've spec'd out our menus on all the major distributors, from Cisco to US Foods, Restaurant Depot. And so if you're a restaurant that signs up in Cleveland, Ohio to take on Fire Belly wings, we have literally mapped out all of the SKUs that you need to carry in order to be a fulfillment partner of these brands. And so all the restaurant has to do is place their order with whatever we've required them to purchase. And we have an entire training process where we help our restaurants get up to speed quickly on how to make each item and each recipe. And then once they're live, we monitor all the reviews that are happening across all the different platforms. We aggregate that and have a dashboard for our restaurants to be able to train them on what's working, what's not. We have a secret shopping program where we pay customers to order from our brands on a weekly basis and fill out these very extensive questionnaires, like how many pickles came on the chicken sandwich, and filling out lots of little questions and taking pictures of each item to make sure that the stickers on the bag were placed appropriately. Every little detail matters here. And when we aggregate all this data and information, we can look holistically to see how we're doing across all these systems, see what our ratings look like. And if there are any operators that need retraining, we have an entire team for making sure that all of those little pieces are being hit correctly. So it's a huge process that we've built to get our fulfillment partners up and running and getting them the tools that they need to be successful with these brands. And so far, we've been able to move at a pace that's never been seen before in this industry. We've brought thousands of virtual restaurant brands to life in a little over a year, because we're not in the business of renting kitchens or cooking food, but rather partnering with restaurants to enable them to do this out of their existing operation.
You've thrown a lot of horsepower at this. It began with the business intelligence. You've analyzed trends, demographics, psychographics across the country to figure out what the consumer is really looking for. And then you've brought in top culinary talent to design these menus, from what I understand. Is all that going on still?
Yeah. We brought on some really impressive people into the culinary team. We've got a test kitchen in Colorado where we launch and iterate and test our brands and our concepts. And one of the most important things to realize here is that it's not about building brands that are going to just sell well or that are on trend or in demand, but it's really about nailing the food quality itself. Because at the end of the day, a restaurant will only be successful if people are craving it and desire it and want to come back. And there's a chance when you're building a virtual restaurant brand from scratch, there's a chance to optimize for a delivery first experience, unlike what's happening in a regular restaurant. Like when I brought the Canter's Deli menu online, it was not set up and ready for a delivery experience. There were lots of items on there, from breakfast items to milkshakes, that don't hold up well in a delivery experience. Even French fries are something that are really hard to get right. And when you're building from scratch in a delivery only world, you can design an entire concept around items that we know are going to actually hold up well, even if they're in a car for 30 minutes. And that also means that we're looking into like innovation in packaging. We're looking into what sort of items can actually do well in this environment, and reheating instructions, and how do we serve something that's unassembled so that it actually arrives in a way that's not soggy. If you look at our George Lopez tacos brand, for example, instead of sending pre-assembled tacos to our customers, we decided that the better way to send it is actually with a stack of tortillas, a pile of meat, and then all the little individual things on the side. So almost creating a build your own experience. And that way, every piece of it, like the things that are intended to stay hot, the things that are intended to be cold, stay cold, instead of just this box arriving that's like room temperature and everything is like the same and it's kind of soggy. So, we've really put a lot of thought into the concept development process and how do we really optimize for a delivery first experience. And I'm really proud of the brand dev team, the culinary team that we've created to ensure that everything that we're putting out into existing restaurants has been proven and tested and optimized already.
All right, you mentioned the 30% profit margin that a restaurant is making now on your brand. So I guess I would automatically assume then that the consistency is a standardized pricing model for each menu item across the country, depending on where it is. It doesn't matter. It's the same price.
So there is quite a bit of variance between pricing on food costs across the country. Like if you're buying wings in New York, it's going to cost different than the wings in the suburbs of Indianapolis. But what we do is we actually use a price equation to determine how we're going to price the items on Uber Eats and on DoorDash and on these platforms in these various areas. And we help our fulfillment partners when we're putting them on these different platforms. We're making sure that they're still maintaining that 25% food cost range across the board. Mm-hmm. And we do that by adding a couple dollars into the price of the items on the menus in New York, for example.
You've probably already thought of this, but does it make sense, or are you doing it now, putting a buying group together of all your restaurants, going to these major suppliers saying, we're going to give you hundreds of restaurants all buying the same ingredients, bang, to get the best price, bang? Is that the way it's working now?
So we're absolutely exploring all the different ways in which we can help bring down pricing across the board for our restaurants. When we first started, actually, some of our earliest brands had food costs in the 28 to 30% range. And we've been able to slowly over time, figure out ways to get them lower and lower. And our goal is to continue to make it easier and cheaper for them to get access to the ingredients that are required for these concepts. And part of that might mean, like looking at group purchasing. It also might mean partnering with great distribution companies and co-packagers. There's a lot of components to all of this, but we recently brought on a director of quality control from McDonald's, and he's really overseeing a lot of the supply chain logistics and the teams that are responsible for helping our restaurants source their ingredients and packaging.
Wow, awesome. Let's talk about what types of cuisine work best. Is it still limited to like pizza, chicken, burgers, or is it just expanding all the time to different cuisine types?
Yeah, it's really fascinating to watch how quickly some of these trends are happening in online ordering sales. We subscribe to a lot of different third-party databases and companies that are showing what's trending in overall consumer purchasing behavior in restaurants, on delivery, internationally. And we look at all of that and sort of pull out really meta learnings from this data to determine how we're designing and developing our new concepts. And the things that you think would do well are pretty consistent with what does well. You mentioned pizza and chicken and hamburgers. Mm-hmm. There's still, a lot of things that are kind of obvious, but there are lots of options for those items already. So if you launch a wing brand, for example, in New York City, you might be one of 300 restaurants to order wings from on Seamless right now. But when you start to zoom in a little bit further, you'll see there are a lot of different types of cuisine that are kind of in this rising bucket. If you look at trends like Korean barbecue right now is something that wasn't wildly popular a couple of years ago, but it's starting to grow on these online ordering platforms. Of course, there's not Korean barbecue restaurants in every major city, but there's a chance to create some version of a Korean barbecue concept that you can now make available through a virtual restaurant brand that could be fulfilled by lots of different types of restaurants across the country in a limited way, in a limited menu way. So, we're doing a ton of experimentation right now to see what works and what doesn't work on delivery. We just launched a recent brand. It's a Mediterranean pizza concept. It's basically, it's called salsa, and it's these pita pizzas that have different types and flavors of hummus as the base instead of tomato sauce. And I don't think anyone's ever created a Mediterranean pizza brand before. But when we launched it in our test kitchen, it started performing really well on these third-party marketplaces. The repeat order behavior was higher than what we've seen on a lot of our other brands. And so we were really excited to run with this new brand and concept. And now we're signing up fulfillment partners all across the country in major cities and suburbs, college campus markets, to see how this thing is going to perform in different environments. And, if you would just look at the data, you wouldn't know a Mediterranean pizza brand is what's going to work. But, lots of people like pizza, lots of people are trying to eat healthier. So we married those two things together and, brought to life a totally new concept that had never been done before.
This is unbelievable. Let's talk about territories, boundaries, exclusivities, crossover. The logistics of all that? It's got to be crazy as you grow across the country. How does it work?
Yeah, so we already have a network of thousands of restaurants that are using our technology to manage their delivery business. We start by first reaching out to order mark customers to say, can you handle extra orders in your kitchen? And if the answer is yes, then we walk them through a process and see if they're a good fit for any of our brands. And that's one way in which we're bringing these brands to life. But we're at the point now where we have many restaurants reaching out to us saying, non-order mark restaurants saying, we need more volume, light us up with more orders. What kind of brands can we be doing? And in our industry, restaurants talk to each other a lot. So there's a lot of word of mouth going around, a lot of referrals. We have, our own marketing efforts that we're doing. We participate in conferences, and lots of online panels and experiences to spread the word of what we're doing, because it's a very new concept right now. If you would have walked into a restaurant 5 years ago and said, "Hey, do you want to run more restaurants out of your restaurant?" someone would have thought you were insane, or that it's like a distraction or whatever. But there's really an opportunity to bring this in a way that is, like I mentioned, non-disruptive and really incremental to what these restaurants are doing. And if you think about, we have lots of examples where we have a high-end restaurant that is very slow in the morning hours, going back to day part. So they've turned on now our breakfast burrito brand called Huevorito, and they're lighting up breakfast burritos all morning, which was a day part that they didn't even have open prior to this. And now they can sell an extra couple thousand dollars worth of orders a month in this new brand, with keeping one extra person on staff for that morning shift. And it's a great way to create more output out of a kitchen. I was starting to go down this path earlier, but if you think about a kitchen as a manufacturing facility, most restaurants are operating at, I would say, 30% output. And we're coming in and bringing them up to 40 or 50 or 60% output, sometimes even more than that, by focusing on bringing in brands that are reaching different day parts. And our goal is to really get even further nuance into like the timing of everything. Like we've got some brands that are doing really well late night after the dinner rush. And a lot of restaurants, may close at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., but now they can turn on multiple brands and stay open until 2 or 3 in the morning and reach an entire different audience that they would never reach without these concepts.
How does let me ask again about the exclusivity and how that works. Because, you could have 2 restaurants in 2 different states that are literally across the border, 5 miles apart. And, they both want to work with you. So do you somehow negotiate who gets what brands and all that sort of thing?
Yeah. So on the topic of delivery radius exclusivity. So we provide our restaurants with a 3-mile delivery radius in which they're able to serve these brands, and we won't sell into restaurants across the street or a mile away if those brands are already taken in those markets. Of course, it's a little bit different in really highly concentrated markets where there's lots of tall buildings and more people to service in a delivery territory. So we will bring that down in certain markets like New York City and up in Chicago, where there's actually the ability for multiple operators to coexist in a certain geography. But for the most part, once you sign up to be a fulfillment partner for these brands, you have that territory to yourself.
Got it. All right. Last question. Let's talk about the entire process. I'm intrigued. I'm listening to this podcast. A light bulb's already gone off in my head about 30 times now. I want new business. I want to work with you, Alex. What's the process? What's the timeline to go? It's like, walk me through a new client relationship and what it takes to set it up. What's the strategy and the timeline?
Yeah. So if you're a restaurant and you're ready to start lighting up your kitchen with more orders, first of all, you can go to nextbite.io. Put in a couple pieces of information, and someone on our team will give you a call right away, and talk through what this looks like. But essentially, timeline wise, we have restaurants asking to turn on these brands, and we have them up and running typically within a month of the whole process, from being interested to signing up to being trained to turning these brands live on the online ordering platforms to taking your first order is about a month-long process.
Not bad.
The training process is just a couple weeks. You got to get your first order of food in, and then you can start with 1 or 2 brands. You can start with 3 or 4 brands. We have some restaurants right now that are doing up to 10 or 12 of our concepts out of a single kitchen, which is not how I would recommend starting. I think it's a really good place to get to. But if you just want to try something like this out, we have some brands that are really easy to turn on and get going with, and then you can kind of build from there.
That sounds like a sound strategy to me. Yeah. Walk before you run, but it is a fantastic opportunity for the future. And what restaurant doesn't need incremental revenues from an existing kitchen? Fantastic, Alex. That was great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And we're really excited about what we're building. We feel like we're really just getting started as a company, and it's a really interesting Wild West moment in time for what we're doing.
Thanks again. Well, that was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Audience, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, we'll see you next time. As always, I appreciate you listening. I'm super intrigued with this idea of expanding your reach and expanding your brand with multiple brand names. Really, it's kind of genius, actually. So thanks so much to Alex Canter for being my guest this week's episode. You know, these are the most challenging times our industry and our restaurants have ever faced, my own restaurant included. I see it all the time in clients I work with. Costs are rising. Expenses are killing us. The staff might be friendly, but are they really selling and increasing our sales? Is your restaurant busy, but your bank account's just not growing? Well, we have the solution to all of these at restaurantrockstars.com. Check out our Restaurant Rockstars Academy. It is a turnkey series of systems to increase your marketing firepower, to train your staff and build what I call your dream team, as well as control your costs and maximize your profit. It's all there at the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, 7 Shifts, the all-in-one labor management platform, and Cisco. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.